Question. There has been a lot of people speaking up about targeted individuals and how they are being electronically harassed with microwave frequencies as test targets as the majority. Supposedly the military years ago discovered how to send audio waves to a person's brain so they can hear them talk inside their heads to them. Now the question goes on, but I'm just going to read the last part because it's rather long. I'll put the whole thing in the description. I know the governments and military have had secrets for eons according to history. There are so many people coming forth with all of this, and seems like a possibility if they discover new energy frequencies and vibrations we can't see and abuse it for power and control. Do you have any insights and thoughts into all of this? Okay, so I consider myself a targeted individual. And I think I've been targeted my whole life. And I think most spiritual people are targeted individuals and have been targeted their whole lives. So I think what is happening here is that more and more people are becoming aware of this. However, my approach to this is spiritual. And this means a couple of things. First of all, I'm always looking for things that can empower me to protect myself against anything, in order to keep control of my life and my state of mind. And second of all, I'm not looking for physical explanations. So my first question to people who believe in this government conspiracy would be, why do you believe this is necessarily physical? See, I'm not denying that many people have thoughts, even emotions, projected into their minds. But why do you think this can only come from a physical source? Because what I explain in several videos, including in my playlist about how the world works, is that there are 4 levels of the material universe. So we have the purely physical, which is what we can detect with our physical senses. Then above that is a higher level of energy frequencies, a higher level of vibrations. That's the emotional realm, and that's our feelings. Above that is the mental, where we have our thoughts, and above that is our sense of identity. And beyond that, of course, is the higher vibrations of the spiritual realm. So what I have explained in a number of videos, including my video about how the world was created, is that Earth is a very dense planet. And what that means is that there are beings associated with Earth who don't have a positive intent. They want to control the inhabitants of Earth, the people who are in physical embodiment. But these beings are not only in the physical realm. There are, of course, some in the physical realm, but there are also some in the emotional, mental, and identity realms. And they are seeking to control us from that level. So you see, you don't actually need microwave radiation to project, or a physical energy generator to project thoughts and feelings into people's minds. Because these beings who are already in the emotional and mental level, they can project from their level thoughts and feelings directly into your mind. So to me, I am not discounting that there could be various secret government agencies who are experimenting with various kinds of technology. I mean, it's pretty fairly documented that the Soviet Union, for example, experimented even with psychic projections and psychic warfare. And so I'm not discounting that, but I'm just saying that as a spiritual person, my approach is these projections that I've been aware of all of my life, they're coming from the emotional and mental and lower identity realm directly into those levels of my mind. And the thing about acknowledging this is that when you realize that, you realize you can do something to protect yourself from these projections. You don't have to just be a passive victim. Because, as I explain in my Spiritual Toolbox playlist, you can invoke spiritual light, high-frequency energy directly from the spiritual realm, from the Ascended Masters. You can, for example, call to Archangel Michael to put a shield of high-frequency energy around your energy field, your conscious and subconscious minds, the subconscious minds being the emotional, mental, and identity minds, or your personal energy field, or aura, as many spiritual people call it. So when you invoke this shield, you can be protected. It's kind of like you see in the movies with a spaceship that has a shield around it where the laser beams bounce off the shield, or bullets bounce off the shield, because it's high frequency energy. And so you can do this, and to me that's empowering, and that's why this is, to me, is valuable. And even if there is a government agency who is using, let's say, microwave radiation, then this is obviously not vibrations which are in the physical spectrum, because we can't detect them with our physical senses. We can't hear them or see them. So therefore, to me, even if they have this technology, you can still protect yourself against these projections by invoking high-frequency spiritual energy. Now, I also explained in several videos that in the long run, these projections, I mean, let's just be clear. We have all grown up with a very incomplete understanding of the world we live in, because we don't have an understanding of these emotional, mental, and identity levels. So we don't understand that there are forces there who are seeking to control us, and that they are constantly bombarding us, especially those of us who are spiritual people, because we are a threat to them by raising our consciousness. We're also pulling up on a collective, and they don't want that. They want to control people. So we are constantly being bombarded with this. But what ultimately makes us vulnerable to these projections is that we have something in our own minds, in our own psychology, that isn't resolved. So here's what I see in a lot of people out there. We have to realize we are living in a specific time where we are transitioning from what is normally called the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. And that means that there's a certain upheaval that's happening on the planet. I've talked about this before, where things are becoming more polarized, more extreme. So there are more and more extremes that are pulling on people's minds to go here or go there. And to me, most conspiracy theories that they cast doubt about the democratic governments we have. And to me, this is clearly a polarization, where people are being polarized into taking this view that, government's out to get us and democracy doesn't work. Right? And who has an interest in democracy not working? Well, all of these forces I'm talking about in emotional, mental, identity realms, they want people to disbelieve in democracy. Because democracy is not the kind of government that they want on earth. They want a dictatorship where they are in control. Of course, there are countries in the world who are not democracies and who don't believe in democracies and are doing everything they can to undermine democracy. Russia, China being primary examples. I have no doubt that any kind of conspiracy theory that sows doubt about democratic governments will be reinforced on social media by these bots and by troll factories in Russia and China that will try to spread this and get more and more people pulled into this. But what I'm saying is, in the time we are living in, the polarizations are becoming sharper and sharper. And many more, and the reason for this is that many people, because we are transitioning into a new age, they are awakening. There are so many people that are awakening to the spiritual side of life. And they are realizing that they weren't told everything. We weren't told everything as we were growing up. So they are looking for answers. But what I'm saying is, you have the positive aspect that people are awakening. But then you have these forces in the emotional, mental, and identity realm that are trying to get the people to awaken to go into either one polarity or the other, where people become unbalanced, become extreme, and they basically go into a blind alley. Instead of continuing on what the Buddha called the middle way of raising their consciousness to higher and higher levels, they are pulled into a blind alley where now they think, oh, the government is out to get me, and therefore I can't really do anything. You see what I'm trying to say? Many people are beginning to awaken, but there are forces that are seeking to derail that awakening and take them into a blind alley, where they have this unbalanced reaction. But what is causing this unbalanced reaction? What is causing people to believe in this very polarized worldview? It's unresolved psychology. It's what I in many videos have called these subconscious cells that we have as a result, in most cases, of trauma from past lives. So for me, again, as I said, I'm a spiritual person, and I'm always looking at every idea that comes to me. I'm looking at, will it empower me? Will it disempower me? And so saying that there is a government agency that's projecting invisible energy rays into your mind and projecting thoughts into your mind, and there's nothing you can do about it, that's disempowering. But saying that there are projections that are coming from the emotional, mental, and identity realms, and that I can do something about it by invoking spiritual protection, that's empowering. Also saying, okay, so if there are these thoughts out there that are being projected at everybody's minds, for example, to undermine democracy, or to make me feel powerless, why am I believing in this? Why am I vulnerable to this? Could it be that there's a reactionary pattern, a subconscious self in my mind that makes me want to believe in something like this? You see what I'm trying to say here? Many people are beginning to awaken. And they are beginning to awaken to the potential that we human beings can raise our consciousness to a higher level than what we see around us, than what is considered normal. Now, I remember many years ago when I was a child reading that we only use 5% of our brain capacity, the physical brain. So what I'm saying is we're actually using less than 5% of our spiritual potential. Because in reality, and this is what spiritual teachers have been saying for thousands of years, we have a much higher potential than what we see as the normal state of consciousness on Earth. And so what is happening here in this transition period is more and more people are beginning to awaken to this potential. And these forces I'm talking about in the emotional, mental, identity realm, they're doing everything they can to derail people and to discourage them and make them feel, oh, what's the point of everything when there's this secret conspiracy that's just controlling everything? Right? So what I'm saying is you can do something to protect yourself from all these projections. You can do something to look at your psychology, and that's what many of my videos talk about. How to overcome things in your psychology that makes you vulnerable to this. I would also say that, as I mentioned earlier, there are some questions I always ask myself. First of all, I ask myself, what is the intent behind spreading these ideas? And as I said, there are clearly countries in the world, Russia and China primarily, Iran probably also, who are doing whatever they can to undermine democracy and to undermine people's belief in democracy. And so to me, this is always sort of a litmus test I'm using. Are they trying to sow doubt about democracy? I'm not saying democracy is perfect. I'm not saying that the governments aren't keeping secrets. But the thing is, we have legitimate ways in a democracy to question the government. In a dictatorship, you can't question the government. Just look at Russia right now. You can't raise any question. I mean, you have teenagers who are being hauled to court because they said something about the Ukraine war on their social media account. So do you really want to live in that kind of a country? Or do you think we are better off in a democracy? So that's one thing I always use. But the other thing is that why do you think that democratic governments are inherently corrupt or taken over by some secret conspiracy. Why do you think that is? I remember I grew up in Denmark. I moved to the United States in 1987. And I was surprised at how many Americans are suspicious of their own government, especially the federal government and federal agencies. And I understand that it's partly because America is such a big country that if you live in Montana, for example, you feel that the federal government in Washington, D.C. is very far away from you. But still, you know, to me, it's so obvious growing up in Denmark, where the Soviet Union was right there east of us wanting to take over. We knew the Soviet Union wanted to destroy democracy and take over our countries. It is so valuable to have a democracy where we can speak up. And ask yourself, you know, this question. If there was this secret government agency that was using whatever invisible energy waves to control people's minds, how would this theory ever have been spread? How would anybody know about this? How would the conspiracy theory spread if they really had such control over society? Wouldn't they have wanted to keep it secret? And then you can ask yourself this: what would be their primary goal for controlling people's minds? Wouldn't it be to pacify people so they just do what they're told? Do you really see that working in America right now? Because I don't see it. You know, the polarization is worse than ever. I moved to the United States in 1987. America was a much more homogeneous society back then than it is now. You really think that somebody who is trying to pacify people, do you think they're doing a good job of it? And if they are not, maybe they don't have as much power as the theory claims. So all I'm just trying to say here is, you know, for me as a spiritual person, the first explanation is not a physical one. It's in the emotional, mental, and identity realms. And that to me is important because it's empowering. I can, as an individual, do something about this. I can protect myself. I can clear my subconscious mind for what makes me want to believe this. Why would people want to believe that their government, that there's a secret conspiracy? Because they don't want to take responsibility for themselves. I talk about this in several videos. When you're really a spiritual person, when you really grasp what the spiritual path is all about, raising consciousness, you realize, I am responsible for myself. I can't allow myself to say, oh, I can't grow spiritually because there's a secret government conspiracy that's projecting microwaves into my mind, and therefore there's nothing I can do. Then you're not on the spiritual path. Then you're not grasping what the spiritual path is about. The spiritual path is about taking control over your own mind, regardless of what's coming at you from the outside. So the fact of the matter is that if you look at this, the people in democratic nations who are believing, who are distrusting their democratic government, believing in all kinds of conspiracies, it's ultimately, and I know this is an unpopular statement, but it's ultimately because they don't want to take responsibility for themselves. But democracy is a form of government that only works in the best possible way if a majority of the people in the country are taking responsibility for themselves, for their country, for the government. Because instead of making the government the enemy, you are saying, what can I do to influence the government and make it better? And you have opportunities for that in a democratic nation that you do not have in Russia or China or Iran. I know people from Russia and Iran. They can't speak out, but you can. And that shows you that there isn't this vast conspiracy that's controlling everything in your society. So to me, you know, any kind of theory that comes to me, any idea that comes to me, it's first and foremost, is it empowering or disempowering?